Chapter 19, Nothing Like Cinderella. It was the shoes that gave me away. I walked to Orphan Paws on Monday morning. We had the day off from school because of the teacher meeting. Lori took one look at my melancholy face and knew not to ask me how the dance went. She simply gave me a huge hug and told me I could go home if I wanted to. But the last thing I wanted to do was sit alone in my tiny room replaying the scene at the end of the dance. So I asked for a job and she gave me one, inventorying the medical supplies in the back closet. Once I removed everything from the shelves, I let myself get lost in counting the boxes of gauze and bandages and antiseptics. The shelves were pretty dusty and I was sneezing a lot. I went to the restroom and grabbed a handful of toilet paper to stuff in my pocket for when my nose started running. I don't know how much time passed before Lori came back and said, "Cecilia, you have a visitor." I rounded the corner into the intake room of the shelter, and there was Eric Chung. Lori stood there smiling, but there was a tightness behind it, as if she knew Eric might have been the cause of my bad mood. "Your helper's back," she announced in a failed attempt to make things not awkward. "Let me know if you need me," she whispered to me, and then quickly left the room. Eric was holding up my strappy black shoes. Lose something? I tried to snatch them away from him, but he held them up higher than my reach for some reason. Still looking at me and all my toilet paper in pocket glory, he said in a quieter voice, "I was right then, you heard." "Of course I heard. You know I was there. You're holding my shoes." "I was bringing them back to you," he said, "but mostly I came to apologize." "Okay." I turned away and started throwing the toilet paper into the nearest trash can. "There's nothing to be sorry about, but thanks for bringing them, I guess." "How'd you get all the way home without your shoes?" I felt a surge of anger. "What do you care how I got home? I'm just your sister's weird friend, remember?" "Cecilia, I'm really sorry." He took a step forward, but then stopped, looking like he didn't know what to do, which was strange since Eric Chung never looked like that, except for the one time he'd asked me for help with Potato. "I didn't think you'd be there listening. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. It's sometimes hard to explain to my friends about my dog show life. They tease me a lot, and I just didn't want to explain how we know each other, and that I'm training yet another dog. Another dog, they'd say." My mind flashed to the several times that Mel and my dad had all said the exact same thing to me, and the weird comment. The guys were just joking around, so I went along with it. "I didn't mean it's just actually, I like that you can be weird, Cecilia. You're different from any other girl. You're really cool." He was staring into my eyes, which was making it hard to pretend that I was fine. I couldn't tell if he was being honest or he was just trying to guarantee that he still had someone to help him with Potato. But then I heard his voice repeat in my head saying, "She's just a friend of my sister's." Here I'd been thinking maybe we could be more than friends, and Eric didn't even think of me as his friend. "You didn't hurt my feelings," I lied. "I'm 100% fine, so you can leave the shoes and go. Since Lily and I are friends, we'll probably have to see each other again, but we don't have to be friends. We'll be," I trailed off thinking of the right word. "Civil?" He sort of smiled when he said it, but it was strange. It was a strange smile, not a happy one. It took me a few seconds to respond. "Yeah, civil. Fantastic. That. Let's be civil." I turned to go back to my inventory closet, but he put a hand on my arm to stop me. "Cecilia, wait." I turned back around. I realized he still had the shoes, so I held out a hand for them without looking at him. I was so embarrassed at this point to make eye contact. When the shoes didn't show up, I raised my head in confusion. He exhaled loudly. "I was really hoping you could forgive me for being such a jerk. Maybe someday you will. I'm not going to stop trying to get you, because Potato and I still really need your help." Potato. I was tempted to back out of our deal, but the image of my dad lying on the couch depressed flickered into my head, reminding me of why I had agreed to help Eric in the first place. I also couldn't bear the thought of losing my Potato forever. "I know you do need my help," I said coolly. Then another question occurred to me, a question I hadn't asked, because I was worried he'd get mad. But now that we weren't friends, what was stopping me? "Why do you care about this so much?" I demanded. "Honestly, why does Potato have to be paraded around a bunch of snobs and measured and poked and prodded? Why can't you just love him?" If I could have kept him, my voice caught and I stopped talking. Eric frowned, looking down. He took a deep breath and let it out. He looked conflicted. "The very first dog we ever adopted was a rescue dog. His name was Porkchop, and I loved him. But then my parents started getting into the dog show business, and all of a sudden we had a bunch of fancy, expensive dogs in the family, too." He paused and ran a hand through his dark hair. We love all dogs that we have, but a part of me always felt that my parents loved Pork Chop less because he never competed. Well, Pork Chop died a few months ago, and my parents didn't even seem that sad about it. So when I adopted Potato, I wanted to prove to my parents that rescue dogs are worthy of love too. And I know that the only way to do it is to have him win a dog show, for me and for Pork Chop. I stared at Eric, unsure of what to say. He had laid everything on the table, and I knew he was telling the truth. But I couldn't quite reconcile the two Erics that stood before me. The jerk who'd mock me with his friends, and the sweet dog lover who wanted to make an important point. I definitely didn't want to prove to his parents that rescue dogs were somehow less than purebreds. Plus, there was still a cash prize on the line, and I wasn't ready to let that go. I, too, had a point I needed to make, a point to my dad that I could help him and help our family. I'm also concerned, Eric continued, that if Potato isn't dog show material, they'll make me give him up. They let me adopt him under the conditions that I take full responsibility for him. They were really hesitant about it, though, so I worry that if Potato doesn't earn his keep in the dog show circuit, he might no longer have a space in the Chung household. I knew this would be important to you since you want him to have a home. But it'd be good for me. I'm growing pretty attached to the little guy. My heart broke a little at the thought of Potato having to move out of his comfy surroundings. Of course, I'd want Potato to keep his home, even if it was with Eric. So, is our deal still on? Eric seemed uncomfortable with my silence. I realized then that I had not yet confirmed or denied whether I was backing out. I closed my eyes, cringing. Helping Eric was the last thing I wanted to do, but I had too many other reasons to keep going. Our deal's still on, I confirmed, opening my eyes. He looked relieved. Okay, see you tomorrow after school. I nodded. Yes, now please go away. Eric gave me one last look, one I couldn't figure out before he did what I asked. Lori popped back in seconds later, taking in my distraught expression. What's wrong? She asked, coming over. I knew I shouldn't have let him in. Do I need to knock some sense into that boy? Lori balled up her fists, which were decorated with several pretty rings, and started boxing in the air. I couldn't help but giggle at the sight. No, it's fine, Lori, I thought for a moment. Have you ever had to do something you didn't want to do, but did it anyway because you knew you had to? I knew I wasn't being super clear, but I was hoping Lori could understand me all the same. All the time, kid, all the time. Lori propped her fists and looked at me sympathetically. She dropped her fists and looked at me sympathetically. Listen, I don't know what's going on with you, and I don't want you to tell me if you're not comfortable, but I want you to know that you're awesome, and whoever can't see that doesn't deserve you in their life. I nodded, blushing a little. Thanks, Lori. It's really too bad about the boy, though, Lori added. At first, I thought it was really sweet, him bringing you shoes that you left at the dance, sort of like Cinderella. I shook my head at her, then rolled my eyes for emphasis. He was not being Prince Charming, I promise you. Lori gave a short laugh, then darted out of the room. From the delighted barks I heard from the front, I was guessing the dogs were happy to see Lori again. She was the kind of person who made every place she went just a little brighter. I turned back to finish up the inventory, but my mind kept wandering. As heartfelt as the pork chop story was, could Eric just be using me to turn Potato into a superstar? Would he and I ever be real friends? And why did I care so darn much?